Hey guys, welcome to lesson number 2 in the quadratics unit that we're in right now. Basically what I want to talk about this time, now that we've talked about the a value in the standard form of a quadratic equation, we're going to introduce the concept of this c value. We talked about how a does a couple of things. It flips the graph, it widens and thins the graph, and now we're going to see what c does to the graph of x squared. So let's open up lesson 2. Okay, so here we are. We're leaving a as 1, right? So we said when a is 1, we have the standard x squared graph. That's why you don't see two graphs right now. You only see one because they're right on top of one another because a is currently 1. And remember, if we move a, the graph gets thinner or wider. But we're going to leave it at 1 so that we can just simply observe what happens with c. So right now we have the standard parent function x squared. Let's see what happens when I move c to be greater than 0. Let's see what happens to the graph. So grabbing it and moving it up. So observe what's happening to the graph. The entire graph is being shifted up as I get higher in c. Okay, so we call that the y-intercept. It's the point where the graph of a quadratic function is cutting or intercepting the y-axis, right? This vertical line at the center of the graph, the y-axis, this is where the parabola is cutting the y-axis. We call it the y-intercept. So that's what C is. So if you're graphing one of these and you see that C, right now C is 2, you know that your parabola is going to cut through 0, 2 because your y-intercept is 2. So moving forward, let's see what happens when we lower our c value, right? I'm going to lower this slider. It's returning back to the center where x squared is, and then it's going to keep going down, right? So the lower my c value, the lower my y-intercept. Now you might be thinking, well, it's moving the vertex. It's moving that turning point. And that's simply because we haven't talked about b yet. Right now, our vertex is still at the center of the graph. But once we start talking about b, you're going to see how that vertex moves based on the b value. All right, well, what if we talk about a and c together? So let's say I have an a value of 2, and then I take a c value of -3. Okay, well, how do I talk about that? Okay, so I would say, in comparison to x squared, the graph of this new function, which is 2, right? A is 2, 2x squared. C is -3, so I could call it 2x squared plus -3, or 2x squared minus 3. Those mean the same thing. And I would say, all right, the graph of this function is going to be thinner because A is greater than 1, and it's going to have a lower y-intercept based on my C value. And that's how the graph starts to move. Let's look at one more example. Let's look at a negative a value, right? So we have a flipped graph, and let's leave our c negative as well. So what would I say? How would I say this? I would say, okay, the graph in comparison to x squared is going to be wider because the a value is between 0 and -1. It's a fraction or a decimal. And then I can say, that the y-intercept is going to be lower than x squared because, again, my c value is negative. See what happens when it's positive. Giving a few examples here because I want you guys to discuss this in your task. I want you to tell me how the graph might look, how the graph of a certain equation might look in comparison to x squared. So in this case, again, a is a negative value between 0 and -1, making it a fraction or a decimal. So it's wider than where we started. and the y-intercept is higher than x squared because c is positive. Maybe you're wondering, like, how can I play with this? How can I see this for myself? You can go to Desmos graphing calculator yourself and try to play around with these sliders. The way you do that is literally by just typing in the equation that you want and then adding sliders to your graph. I can show a tutorial about how to do that in a later video, but for now, I hope this was enough help to get you started on SAS 2. See you guys.